lesson 6 of the Piano Skills Foundation Intermediate Level 1. You have hopefully had fun with the first 5 lessons of this level, and you're rolling along on the Little Sonatina by Beethoven that you're trying to memorize. Hopefully you've got the first 2 lines. Today we're going to work on the second 2 lines, and we've got some reading exercises for you. Just want to remind you to watch your pedalings, watch your fingerings, all those things that I've decided to try not to talk too much about in the video because it takes a lot of time. You just have to really observe that stuff on your own. I hope that you are always willing to go slower than I go on the video, because when you're learning stuff, you could go uber slow so that your mind absorbs the information better and you'll be better off for it. So anyway, have a good time. All right, so the first thing on your list is our scale, arpeggio, cadence, and burlesque, as you can see up here at the top. And I'm going to just go ahead and play it in the key of D again, because our reading exercises are either in D or the relative minor. I'm going to go ahead and put the metronome this time up to 112. So we're moving up a little bit, and you can either play right on the beat for the scale like this, or you can do 2 notes per beat, or you can do 2 beats per note. No matter how you decide to do it, just try to make it through the whole scale, arpeggio, cadence, and burlesque. And of course you can do it in many different keys, all the ones that we have listed, but I'm just doing it in the key of D this week. Arpeggios. Cadence. I'm just playing each one 2 beats per note, per chord. And then burlesque. Of course, was your Sakba in the key of D. And of course, you can do it however fast or slow you need to, and you can do as many of them as you want to, but whatever you do, have fun with that. All right, so the next thing on your list are your major and minor triads going chromatically. I'm going to go ahead and put the metronome this week up at, I'll just keep it at 112, which is where I had it for the Sakba. We're going to go ahead and give each chord 3 beats and say the name of the chord along with it like this. C major, D flat major, D major, E flat major, E major, F major, G flat major, G major, A flat major, A major, B flat major, B major, and C major, C major, B major, B flat major, A major, A flat major, G major, G flat major, F major, E major, E flat major, D major, D flat major, C major. Now what's new this time though, you'll notice that I've added the word roll. So after you go through blocking your major triads, go through them again rolling like this. And I usually don't make my students say them anymore. This is too fast for you, then go slower. The important thing to remember when you roll them, especially when you're coming down, is to think of the whole chord. So as if you're about to block it, but then roll it. that was the majors. Now I'm going to do the minor triads. First, we're going to block them and say them. C minor, C sharp minor, D minor, E flat minor, E minor, F minor, F sharp minor, G minor, G sharp minor, A minor, B flat minor, B minor, C minor, C minor, B minor, B flat minor, A minor, G sharp minor, G minor, F sharp minor, F minor, E minor, E flat minor, D minor, C sharp minor, C minor. Now I'm going to roll them. That's how you do your major and minor triads from now on. Good luck with that. All right, so your first reading exercise in lesson 6 is if you like thirds in D. And of course, the title refers to all these parallel thirds you're going to be doing in the right hand. So watch the fingering on those very closely because these are very typical fingerings for parallel thirds. The left hand will get to do them on the second half. So I'm going to go really slow, but probably not as slow as you should start at the very beginning of the week when you practice this. But towards the end of the lesson, it could take you 2 or 3 weeks to get this learned. But by middle of the first week, perhaps you could be doing it at about 60, which is where I have the metronome. So here we go. We're going to do the right hand by itself. Watch the pedaling. I'm hoping at this point you're good at observing the pedal markings, so I don't have to talk about them too much. 1, 2, and no, by the way, I'm starting at the beginning in case you didn't know. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Change. 2 and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. And that was the right hand for the first line. Now the left hand, and the left hand has some moves that you might be able to do without looking down at your hand. So see if you can get that moving around without looking down. If not, it's okay to glance for the bigger jumps. But for the most part, you'll make yourself a better music reader if you keep your eyes on the music instead of on your hand. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. All right, now I'm going to do both hands. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. And then you would do that till you get 3 perfects. And then move on to measure 5. Measure 5, right hand by itself. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Same fingering as the first line. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Of course, the second half of that line, the second half is different than the first line. The first 2 measures are the same. So I did not write the fingerings in here. If you need to write them in again, you can bring them down, write them in with a pencil. Once you get that right hand learned, it's the left hand's turn at measure 5. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then once the left hand is mastered, both hands. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so once you've mastered mastered that, you've gotten your 3 perfects. Then, of course, play the first 2 lines together, and then you're ready for the 3rd line, which is where I'm going to go right now. Right hand by itself, and you might not even get to this 3rd line until like the 4th or 5th day of practice, so don't worry about it. Just take your time and master each line with your eyes on the music, counting out loud. Here we are, measure 9. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. Okay, and that was the right hand part. Work on that till you get it. And then the left hand goes like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And you'll notice there were a couple big jumps in that left hand part. And if you need to, I'm about to have a notebook disaster. Here, I'll just do that for now to save it. Now you're going to notice that the left hand has some big jumps from here to here, and then back down, and then from here to here again. On those big jumps, I would usually say to students, you can look down at your hand because you're not quite ready to do those. If you want to work on it till you get it without looking at your hand, great. If not, just take a quick glance down and then get your eyes back on the music. Anyway, here we go with both hands on the 3rd line. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. And that was the 3rd line. And of course, once you get that, you can put all 3 of the lines together and work on that until they're smooth. And I'm going to move on to the 4th line. The 4th line starting with the right hand at measure 13. You'll notice an interesting fingering start here. Your 2nd finger on G, your thumb, and then your 2nd finger again on B. So we're just starting like that. But you don't come in until the end of 1. So let your metronome beat on 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, off. Okay, that was the right hand. I forgot to bring in the pedal until about the 2nd measure there, but hopefully you'll use your pedal all the way. Once you get your right hand learned, left hand. And you'll notice the left hand is sort of a descending scale of thirds, and you just really want to watch the fingering on this. So make sure you get the fingerings on the page. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. That's a pretty tricky left hand, so just work on it probably a lot slower than I just went until you get it mastered. And then both hands like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, off. And that was the 4th line. And of course, once you've gotten 3 perfect on that, I got my notebook disaster still going on here. Then, of course, you've got a chance to play the whole piece, and you can do it as slow as you want to at first and work your way up throughout the period of however many weeks it takes you to get this. I'm going to go ahead and put it at the lower range that I wrote on your assignment sheet, which I think is 72. So I have the metronome at 72. And we're going to try to see if I can make it through the whole thing without too many errors. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1. hopefully you can catch my error. If you want to watch the video back right here in measure 9, I goofed up the right hand, but I think you probably can figure it out on your own without me redoing it. I am going to redo it, but faster. I want to show you what it's going to sound like up at the suggested 112. And only people who are crazy enough to stick with it for several weeks will probably get it up to this speed. But let me give it a shot so you know what it sounds like. 1, 2, and 3, 4. I should really have practiced that. Let me show you the lines where I screwed up the most. I want to do these 2 lines again, see if I can do better this time. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, and 3. That was better. So if you want to see me really screw up, go back and watch the first playthrough at 112, and I really messed this up. I sort of improvised my way through it, and then the second line a little bit. So that was how they should have sounded. Anyway, I hope you have fun with that exercise. Just be patient, and you don't feel like you have to work it all the way up to that speed. No matter what, have fun with that. All right, so your next reading exercise in lesson 6 is the B minor motion. And what I'm going to do on this one is the usual, right hand, left hand both. I'm going to do it nice and slow. And again, you should probably go even slower. And I don't know if I'm sure I mentioned this in previous videos, but when you first start working on something, don't even use the metronome. But once you get going, after a couple, 2 or 3 practices and you're getting familiar with it, then start using the metronome. I'm going to put it at 60 so you can hear the beat, and you can go much slower if you need to. You'll notice that when we use eighth notes, these seemingly slow speeds seem a lot faster. But I'm going to play the right hand by itself. Really watch the fingerings. There's no pedaling to worry about. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's the right hand on the first line. Left hand, pretty simple. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and once you get that left hand mastered, both hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and do the second line. Right hand starting with the third finger on F sharp. 1. I'm assuming at this point you've done your 3 perfects on the first line. Then you're ready for the second line. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. And that's the beginning of the third line. Now, once you get your right hand mastered, left hand's turn. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. Okay, and master that left hand, and it's time for both hands. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. And that was the second line. Now we're going to go ahead and do the right hand by itself on the next line. This would be after you've gotten your 3 perfect on the second line, and then put the first and the second line together. Now I'm on the third line with the right hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 that's the right hand. Hopefully you watched those fingerings very carefully. Left hand's turn. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2. Hopefully you see that the left hand is pretty easy. 2 and 3 and 4. Just the little jumps. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Once you get some good practice on that left hand, put the hands together. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Sorry about my bad fingering on that one. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. All right, so that was the right hand. I goofed up the fingering. Hopefully you noticed right here on this part, I did the wrong fingering. It should have been. But if you go back, watch the video and see what I did, I don't even know what I did that was wrong, but you can probably catch it. Anyway, once you get that 3 perfect, it's time to go on to the 4th line. Now the 4th line has a DC al fine at the end, which means you have to repeat back to the beginning. So what we'll do when we practice this is go all the way back to the first note here. So I'm going to do that. Right hand by itself. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. So that's the right hand part. Left hand, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Sound familiar? 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3. Then move your thumb down to F sharp. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. And of course you can look for that big jump right there. All right, once you get that left hand learned, both hands go like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. And that took us back to the beginning. Now, of course, once you get those 4 lines all practiced like this, you've done 3 perfect on all of them. Play through the whole thing. I'm going to put you down at the lower end of what I sort of wrote on the first page of your lesson 6, which is 72. So I'm putting the metronome to 72 and see if I can play through the whole thing once, and then we'll try it up at our top speed, which is 120. So here we go. 72. 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2. That was at 72. Now I'm going to bop it up to 120 so you can hear what the suggested speed is. You certainly don't have to get this fast, but if you want to stick with it, it's kind of fun. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry about that. made a few errors in there. Hopefully you can catch them. I made all kinds of wonderful fingering errors in here. And then you can check the first time through, I really goofed this one. I did a little better the second time. But as you can see, 120 is fairly challenging on this piece. So best of luck to you on that one. I hope you have a good time. All right, so for our piece that we're trying to learn and memorize, it's the Little Sonatina by Beethoven in G. Today we're going to do measures 9 through 16. It says to review measures 1 through 8, and I'm hoping that you can do that on your own because it's the exact same thing we did back in lesson 5. So you do that again by yourself. I'm just going to show you how to work through measures 9 through 16, which means we're doing this whole thing, and then back to what is essentially the beginning. The top of the second page is just like the top of the first page. So hopefully you can see kind of how that works. But we're going to go ahead and work just from measure 9 through measure 11's first note right now. Right hand by itself, your thumb is on A. We're going to count it. I usually do some counting for you on these learning and memorizing pieces. You do not have to count all the time, just when you're first learning it. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and on that part, I want to point out that there is a break in the slurs here. So if you have a slur and then another slur, that means the composer didn't want you to do just one smooth line from here to here. They want you to break. So you'll notice after I did this, I jumped instead of connecting. So I wanted to make it sound like a singer was breathing there. So if you want to do that, you could. I'm going to do that one more time. Right hand, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, jump, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So work on that until you have it memorized. As usual, you could go slower. I'm trying to make these videos not quite so long, so I'm trying to go a little faster than you might be going when you're first learning them. Left hand is just rocking these 2 notes to start with. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and off and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay. Once you have that memorized, put them together. I'll go a little slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, now do that till you get 3 perfects by memory, and then on to the next measure, which is actually the next 2 measures, starting at measure 11. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and here's another break. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, and that takes you to the first note of measure 13. Memorize that right hand part. Then the left hand is still doing a little rocking pattern. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and off on beat 2, 3 and 4, and then the first note 1. Okay, now I'm going to put them together. Right hand thumb of 10-second finger. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, now once you get that 3 perfect, then try the whole line. I'm going to put a stop in the middle of it first. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and stop. And now from there, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, and now it's time to do the whole line without the stop. I want to point out that I just decided on the fly here to let go of the left hand's note at the same time that I let go of the right hand note, rather than waiting until I play that. I don't know if you noticed, it's a very subtle thing, but I was at first when I went through the 2 measures, I held the left hand until I played the next note on beat 2, and now I'm deciding to just let go of it at the same time so they sound like a clean break. If you care to notice subtle things like that, you might want to try that. Anyway, here we go, the whole line. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and that was measure 9 through the first note of measure 13. Once you've done that, 3 perfect by memory, then you can move on to the next line, which we're going to do now. Right hand by itself. Let's do some counting. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And you'll notice I'm still lifting right before I play that next note. 4 and 1. Okay, so now that's the right hand part. Now the left hand, after you've memorized the right hand. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Now I hope you noticed that I connected the left hand's top note when I went from this chord to this chord, and from this chord to this chord. Work on connecting the top note with your left hand. Once you get that memorized, put them together like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's the first half of the bottom line. Now I'm going to go ahead and play this. You'll notice that the left hand doesn't really do much, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and do both hands and go to the first note of the second page. So here's it. Here's the both hands on this part. You don't really have to do a hand separate. Right hand's here, left hand ended here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then just like the beginning, oops, wrong finger. I almost did the right finger and I switched, and oops, I wasn't paying attention. So hopefully you'll finish with a 2-4 in the right hand, and the left hand, I mean. Anyway, now once you get that 2-measure stretch memorized to the first note of the next page, then do the whole line with a stop in the middle. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Oh, I forgot to put the stop in. Let me try that again. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Stop. And then go. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do the whole line without the stop. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. All right, now, after you've done that and memorized these, try to put those 2 lines together, and then you would proceed to review the rest. For this video, all I'm going to do is just those 2 lines, and then leave you on your own, and then the next time we'll start working with how to play through all of it using metronome and stuff. But for now, I'm just going to play through these 2 lines that you just learned, hopefully. 1 and 2. Already know this next part. So anyway, go ahead and this week work on memorizing these 2 and then re-memorizing these each time you practice. And before you go on to lesson 7, go ahead and have this whole thing going really well, which will also include this because it's the same as the first page. So anyway, I hope you're having fun with that. See you next time.